Hey
All right.
guys, we
Hey,
are
everybody.
back.
Yep.
We're chapter 7.
Yes, chapter
Yay, back to
7.
teens.
Very applicable to me. All that
Me
sleep
too.
part. Yeah.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
me
I was
too.
getting a little I really have a lot of work to do in that area, being a shift worker, and not just a shift worker, but somebody who works 12-hour shifts. My
Yeah.
days of working and my off days look totally different.
Right.
Yeah, that's probably not good.
Yeah, this chapter was very interesting and really is motivating for me to do some work in this area of sleep.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I
So, and
did
I
go
do have,
back on my Fitbit though and checked, and my sleep overall has gotten better. I mean, it's like in the 80s, which for me is really good. Like
Yeah.
it ranges generally anywhere between like 81 to like 89. I mean, it's just kind of I don't have any 90s, but
What do you
I mean,
mean?
it used to
I'm
be
not
a whole
familiar
lot
with that.
worse. Yeah, it used to be a lot worse.
oh
So I
yeah,
think
it's
I'm
it's
getting
it's the
there.
way it's the way it's rated. I have my app is called Very Fit. And so, like, I'll show you. See, my sleep quality last night was just okay. I don't know if you're going to be able to see. Uh, see how it
Yeah.
says 64?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And it breaks down the sleep into the different, hang on.
Oh,
And what
Yeah.
and what is this measured by?
It's this.
Your
and so
watch?
My
what
watch.
device is
My
that?
watch.
What is that device
Oh,
that you're
goodness.
wearing?
This is like a $25 thing I got on Amazon. I don't even know what the brand is,
Oh,
The
but
wow.
watch is or
the watch and the app is part of it.
oh, okay.
Yeah, the app is called Very Fit, but it tells me my O2 sats. It tells me my stress levels, my heart rate. It
Yeah.
does a sleep analysis, so I can see like it breaks down any awake time, REM sleep, light sleep, deep sleep. Gives me the sleep score and my sleep duration. Which last night wasn't good. It was too low. Yeah. Anyways, we're going to talk about this, but this has been helpful.
Mm-hmm.
But I can see in reading this chapter some areas that I definitely need to work on. So I'm
Oh,
really
yeah, me
anxious to
too.
dig in and talk about it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've never really looked into improving my sleep that much. And I've heard people say, oh, you should be on the same schedule no matter if you're on a work day or, just 7 days a week, basically. And I do not do that or even try to do that at all. I
Yeah.
That would
love
be
to
really
stay up
hard for
late
you
at
to
night.
do, though, Kim. That would be really difficult.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
mean,
know
like
how you do.
I'm a night owl. I love to stay up late at night, but yet I work 7 to 7. So on my days that I work, I have to get up at 5:30 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
you find it harder to get to sleep early on those the night before you have to work?
Yeah, I really don't go to sleep that much earlier. I just get
Okay.
less sleep.
Yeah.
Less sleep.
Um,
Yeah.
I mean, 11 p.m., sometimes even midnight, and I have to get up
Mhm.
at 5:30. So, yeah,
Mhm.
it's probably not good.
As I've gotten older, I have noticed that I generally keep the same sleep schedule, like go to bed at the same time, even on weekends. It was a little bit different when, like, my brother and I went out of town. It was, my sleep was horrible both nights in the hotel. I mean, it was like 53. It was terrible. It
Oh,
was
wow.
like my sleep was awful at the hotel, but so it's much better
Yeah,
at
Yeah.
home.
I wonder if like I've always resisted having a 5-day a week job, but I wonder if it would actually be better, for staying on the same consistent sleep schedule. It would be more natural.
Yeah.
Right.
But
Well,
I'm thinking though, if you got a job, like since you like to stay up late and stuff, like maybe if you did a 5 day a week job, but then like your start time was later, so you were like maybe second shift, that you would kind of incorporate that then on your off days that would
Yeah.
fit more into your regular rhythm.
Well,
Because I
they
think she was talking about consistency.
Yeah,
in
they
here.
have like 11A to 11P positions, and I've always resisted that for some reason. I don't know why, really. I kind of enjoy getting up early, but it's the only reason why I enjoy is because I'm forced to wake up, and it doesn't matter how sleepy I am. I have to push through that. But on my days off, if I'm that sleepy, I will not push through that. I'll just lay back down, you know?
Yep.
So,
Right.
anyway.
Yeah, it's hard when you have kids at home, to have be working or sleeping when you're supposed to be there doing the mom thing. But when I worked night shift, I just did night shift for a year when I was living down in California in the Bay Area, and I could not go like back and forth on my off, my days off and sleep at night. I just kept the same schedule, and that's the only way I survived. I
think
could
really
not.
that's the best.
Pardon me?
I think that's the best,
Yeah.
stay on whatever schedule.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because
Yeah.
by the time you adjust, it's back to you have to change back.
Yeah.
Right.
It's
Exactly.
Totally disruptive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, you guys ready to dive in?
Let's do it.
Yep.
All right.
I'll just say one thing. I was shocked. I mean, I knew that doctors in residency had to really go through some intense things. But what she talks about here, I'm just like, how do they keep from making mistakes or messing things up when they have so little sleep and that's kind of scary to me, to be honest.
Yeah, it's very scary. Especially
and according to this, yeah, she gives statistics that they do mess up.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so we can summarize. So the chapter is called Respecting Your Biological Clock, Light, Sleep, and Meal Timing. And so she starts with the story about during her residency and being an ENT surgeon and just the type of schedule that residents keep. And I mean, they'll have them staying up for hours, but somewhere, and you guys, if you see it, let me know. Somewhere in here, she said she gave the quote for like the statistic for how many errors are made because of sleep
I don't remember
deprivation.
seeing that, but I'm looking for it.
It was in here somewhere. It was significant.
Yeah,
I missed it.
Yeah, let me see if I can find it. But let's see. Yeah, if I find it, I'll go to it. But
I'm not seeing it, but I very well. I must have looked that part, but I just remember reading this and thinking, "Oh my gosh, how can a person function like that, and how can they function with any clarity?" And they're in these medical situations where they have to make these critical decisions. They have to do things, they have to make a snap decision on treatment or just whatever. And
right.
I'm like, how can you function? You're a zombie. I mean, you'd have to just be on autopilot. Maybe they just drill this medical stuff into you so well that you just automatically know it. Maybe, I don't know, but that's just,
it's really, to me, this, and then the way that our military has to do, it's both of it is like a form of,
torture,
almost torture. Yeah. It's like it's not.
I sort of see why maybe the military might have to do it, because when they're in a wartime situation, I mean, there's not going to be a set time that you get up and a set time that you go to bed, and you have to be kind of ready. But at the same time, I can sort of see it a little bit for military, but for the doctors, that's scary. That is so scary.
Yeah.
Keep looking.
And disturbing.
So, yeah. Well, it was interesting. She's talking about, let's see, she compared us to a battery on an electric car, which I thought was an interesting analogy to make, because she basically says our bodies need somewhere between 7 and 8 hours of sleep a night. And she said if she said most people, even most doctors, go through life without deeply considering their circadian rhythm. But step back and think about how little sense this makes. If the battery of an electric car can run for 400 miles and requires 8 hours to fully charge, you operate the machine within those parameters. If you instead charge the car for 6 hours and expect it to travel 700 miles, you'll be sorely disappointed at its output. She said, what's happening to our cells is that simple. I thought that was a really good analogy, that we're operating on not recharging our batteries. And then we wonder, why are we performing at a suboptimal level?
Yeah.
And our health is impacted. That makes a lot of sense. So
Yeah,
I get that things can happen at any time for doctors, but it's still not like a wartime situation, where and it just seems to me like they're expected to just, I don't know, working all those hours like that.
Well, what's the purpose of doing 36 hours? I mean, are they trying to prepare these residents for a crazy once in 100-year crisis where, they have no choice but to work that long? I mean, that doesn't make any sense. It seems like while you're learning, having consistent sleep, working a consistent schedule so that you can really learn your skill and know what you're doing is going to be set them up for performing better under more of a crisis situation.
I feel like it's more like an indoctrination kind of thing.
Yeah.
Well, maybe that's not the word I'm looking for. More of a
initiation, like a sorority or something, or a fraternity.
Yeah. It's almost like you have to pay your dues kind of thing. That's
right.
sort of what it strikes me as. But
like, we had to go through it, so you have to go through it.
And
we went through the torture.
They did change the laws, like in the last 10 or 15 years. I'm really bad at keeping up with time. But
me too. Time passage disorder.
Yeah. They did change the law, and they restricted how many hours that these residents can work, but they still find ways to skirt the system. Like, my dogs.
Hello, doggies.
So, yeah, it's amazing. And somewhere, I wish I had highlighted this, the statistic that she gave, and maybe it's later and I thought it was earlier, but where she talks about the medical errors, because it was surprisingly high.
Although reading about those working conditions, I don't think it's very surprising. I mean, it's scary when you think about it, though.
It may be even higher than what they quoted it. Maybe, I mean, it's probably difficult to really measure, like, how many medical errors are made because of sleep deprivation.
Oh yeah, especially knowing that most medical errors are not one error. Most medical errors, most medical harm is done by a series of errors.
Yes.
Your antibiotic was given, 2 hours late. Then your doctor didn't round and check on you at the time he was supposed to. And then, something else happened. It's like a series of unfortunate events, basically.
Right. But perhaps they took a look at statistically when it came to medical errors, like maybe in surgery or, and looked at where the doctors were on their shift. So maybe if they really looked into it and they saw, okay, well, after a 12-hour shift, you make this many hours. After a 24-hour shift, you make this many errors. And, they may have measured it that way and saw that there was a significant number of increase in errors, which makes sense.
And then also getting people to actually report their medical errors is really a challenge, because it's just human nature. People don't want to have the blame put on them. They don't want to be outed. They don't want to be punished. Working in a hospital where they have a less punitive system for dealing with medical errors. It's been like night and day from some of the other places that I've worked. If you make a medical error in this place, they want to use it as a teaching a teaching moment for those to come. They want to change processes so that you are not going to be at risk of making that in the future, or someone else isn't. Because if you could make that error, someone else could, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah. That
And we're
happened to me.
human. We are people, and so
Yeah.
we all make. I've actually had
And
this
people
thought.
don't realize, I mean, like, people don't stop to think about, like, your doctors and your nurses, they're just people, just like Dr. Berry says, they're dudes and chicks, just like you and I. They just happen to have went to school for that. And
Yeah.
even if they absolutely have the best intentions, even if they absolutely try their best every single day, they're going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that happened to me the first few months as a brand new nurse, the first hospital I ever worked for. I had they want you to put in a safe event, to report any errors that you see, even if it's yourself. And so I put in a safe event on myself in a situation where I didn't think it was anything that was going to endanger anybody. But what happened was that the cafeteria delivered a meal to a diabetic patient and put it right in front of them, and they started eating before I could check in. The cafeteria is not supposed to do that. They're supposed to put it, for diabetic patients, they're supposed to put it aside, and then we come in and check their blood sugar, and then they can eat, right?
Yeah,
And
but
so
how many times is that actually?
it
That
happened.
happens all the time.
It happens all the time. And we ended up making changes later with the diabetic patients and putting the signs up, on the doors to remind the cafeteria. But I ended up just checking a postprandial blood sugar on that patient because it was, and I was brand new. I was probably maybe a couple months as a nurse. And so I submitted a safe event. I got written up. And after that, the other nurses on the floor told me, yeah, they say it's for education, but that's why we don't do safe events.
Oh my
Because
gosh.
you end up getting in trouble.
Yeah, that's messed up. I'm really glad my hospital deals with it the way that they do. If I were to do that, they would use that. I mean, they might not use just that one event that I had, but
Right.
if multiple people put in the same event, or if it was significant enough, they would change the process.
Yeah.
But we don't have a process of like dietary not taking trays into diabetic patients. That's a really good idea.
Oh yeah, we had to do something because it was happening too often. And I guess that's the one thing that came out of me doing the safe event, even though I ended up getting written up, which was ridiculous. It's not supposed to be the case. But that did change as far as we just had signs we put on the doors.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, where and of course there was a call down to the director of the food services, and to tell them that we're doing this and this is important, that you do not. And they even, for a while, I don't know if it continued, but they for a while had the cafeteria, and any diabetic patient, they even like sent a page to the nurse when they delivered a tray.
Oh,
So which was a lot to me. That was a lot, but
yeah.
it was a little bit extra work. But
Well,
anyways,
as the nurse, I usually tell my patient, if they bring your tray in here, ring your call bell and let me check your sugar before you eat.
I do too. But lots of times the patients don't remember. They're on pain medications, they don't feel well. They forget, and they don't do it. Yeah. So, okay. All right. You guys want to go on to talk about the sunlight?
Yeah. And I totally agree. Sunlight is so important. I mean,
it is, and none of us get enough of it.
That's right. That's right. And I can tell I feel so much differently if I go outside early in the morning and I take my walk and I see the sun come up and I can feel it on my face. I see, I don't look directly at the sun. Like, if I turn my head to the sun, I close my eyes, but I can feel it. I can see the light around me, and And I can just tell that there's a big difference. And if I make it a point to go downstairs periodically throughout the day and just stand for like just a couple of minutes and just let the sun hit me, my frame of mind is just so much better. And like the last few days, it's been pouring down rain, gloomy, and with all the bad news about the floods and all that. And it's just kind of been a downer. And I can definitely tell a difference. And I can tell a difference with the seasons too, which she doesn't really necessarily get into that, but
she doesn't.
And speaking of the flooding, I've just been really worried about everybody in our community too, like trying to remember where everybody's from and, who was affected and stuff. And it's like, oh my gosh.
Oh, yeah, so much has been decimated. It's been terrible.
First person I thought of was you, Carrie, and Dr. Barry, because I saw all that stuff in Tennessee. And, I'm not from Tennessee. I mean, it's our neighboring state, but still, I don't know it well enough to know, like, who lives where. But, man.
Wow.
Yeah. But it's been intense over the whole state. I mean, East Tennessee, I think, has gotten it worse. Imagine that, because it's pretty bad around here. Thankfully, my kids and me, we're okay. But I do have some friends that, have had some flooding, and of course, Nashville has been kind of famous for floods and tornadoes lately.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. But yeah, she doesn't talk about, the seasons and all of that. She did say the amount of light a human is exposed to outside on a clear day is 100 times more than the amount inside with artificial light. And she said, even sitting under a shade tree, you're exposed to over 10 times or more light than when sitting inside with artificial light.
And she talks about the sun entering your eyes being the body's on switch. And I can say from experience, just my personal experience, that that's true. It just flips something on to where I have more energy and peace too. I don't know. I just feel more in tune with things when I get that morning sunlight.
Yeah.
And a window is not sufficient. She said that the glass is a physical barrier to the photons reaching your eyeballs and key information getting to your cells. So you need to be outside.
What was really surprising to me was where they said that there were studies that suggest that exposure to bright light during the day is also crucial for maintaining insulin sensitivity.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Wild.
All of this, the sleep, the light exposure, everything she talks about in this chapter, she talks about the insulin sensitivity and the glucose spikes and, controlling your glucose. And I'm like, okay.
So
I wonder.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying, I was wondering if the stall that I'm in might be because of my sleep. And
never know. But Lynn, listen, I can tell a difference. And I haven't seen you in 2 weeks. Your face looks thinner.
Oh, does it?
Yeah.
I think so. I thought there was something different about you, but I couldn't really put my finger on it.
Yeah, it's wild. You may not be losing weight on the scale, but your body's changing, even like in the 2 weeks since I've seen you.
I might be a little less swollen potentially too, because
I'm more swollen and you're less swollen.
I was going a little bit too crazy with the higher histamine foods, so I have backed off.
I can tell
that. And so, oh, good, yay!
All right, so I was wondering,
my face gets puffier, and that's really a gauge for me as to
me too.
How am I doing? My face gets puffier. Wow. Yeah. Okay, good. Well, you just made my day.
Oh, and I got a vibration plate from what's the one that Bill
the Life Pro?
Yeah, I got one of those.
Oh, good. Okay. Have you started using it?
No, it's still in the box, but I'm gonna get it out probably later.
Okay. So I last Sunday, because we did meet last Sunday, I was over visiting my husband's cousin and her husband, and she has the big huge one that looks like almost a Stairmaster, that's got the handles and the big panel and everything. Big crazy one. I went on it. I could only be on it for like 5 minutes and I started to get dizzy. And you have to work your way. So be careful. That's just my whole takeaway is just you kind of
Yeah.
have to work your way up because it really does something.
Wow.
pretty
We'll
nuts.
see. But I wanted
Yeah.
to read this little sentence here. It says, scientists from the University of Geneva discovered that even minor changes in light exposure, such as an hour of light exposure in the middle of the dark cycle or light deprivation for 2 days, can have a significant impact on insulin resistance. This finding may help explain why people who are exposed to light at inappropriate times are more likely to develop metabolic disorders like diabetes. I mean, this is even talking about like being exposed to light in the middle of the night and stuff.
Mhm.
I don't know
Mhm.
that we've gotten to actually
Right.
talks about that yet, but that
Yeah,
would
but
be
she
a
does
start
talk
studying it.
about ambient light, in the middle of the night affecting you
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, even getting up to the bathroom, if
Mhm.
you're supposed to have your room completely dark, and if you have like a night light in the hallway and you get up to the bathroom, just looking at the light in the middle of the night like that can be disruptive to your sleep cycle and
So
your insulin. And,
stumble into the bathroom, stub
yeah,
your toe,
that's right. That's right. That's what you're supposed to do.
Yell
Well,
and
check
curse, wake everybody up.
and
I
make sure
wonder
your
if
husband
there's
didn't
like a
keep the toilet
shade
seat
of
up.
light. Like maybe, how they have the red light and stuff. I know we used to use red light with our lizards because they weren't supposed to have the actual, white light in the middle of the night like that.
Later in the
Hmm.
chapter, doesn't she talk about possibly getting red light for the evenings?
I think I remember. I
Yeah.
vaguely remember that, but
But
She
I don't
does
know, like,
mention
how
it.
do you I mean, are there light bulbs that you can switch them from regular light to red light to
Cynthia has red light bulbs everywhere at night.
Oh,
Ah.
so how
Cynthia,
does that work?
you
Like, because 'cause I'm assuming
you're
you're
like
not switching.
you're so like on top of things.
Yeah, she's like
Totally.
aware.
She's knowledgeable. She's just aware. She actually implements it. Like I have the
Yes.
knowledge and then I won't implement it.
So my question for Cynthia is the logistics of that. Like, do you just have certain lamps that have red light bulbs in them and then you just turn those on at night? Or are the bulbs those that you can like one click is a white light, the second click is a red light? I know nothing about this.
Ooh, now that
So
would be cool because I have one of those lamps that like if you tap it once, it's like dim. And then if you tap it again, it's a little bit brighter. So maybe if
mhm.
there's a red bulb that you could get or a bulb that maybe has 2 different types of light. I don't know if there
Mm,
is. If there's not, we need to invent one.
yes. Yes, that's right.
So you heard it
So
here first,
That's
folks.
right.
that's
So
right.
if there's not
Somebody's gonna
one,
steal your idea, Carrie.
yes,
Every
we
time
need
I
to do
think I
that.
have an idea, like very soon after, I find out that somebody else comes up with it and
Yeah.
has already done it. Oh, plugins. Okay.
Plugins. Oh,
So you
okay.
just plug them in. Okay. Oh, you
Okay.
can get programmable lights.
Well, that
Okay.
sounds cool.
This sounds like something to look into for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All
And
right. So that brings us to sleep. All right.
Mhm.
And this is very shocking the way she starts this out. She
Yes,
says,
it is. I was like, "What?"
yes.
she says, want to kill a puppy? And I was like, did the book
No.
just switch on me? Like, am I
No.
still listening to the same book? Want to kill a puppy? Subject it to sleep deprivation for just 9 days. Want to give
Which is
yourself.
sad because that means someone did that.
Hmm.
Well, that's true.
All right.
Somebody would have
That's
had to
awful.
Like,
do
how
it,
do
I
they
would
know
think.
that?
I
The only
don't
way
know.
they know
That's
that is if they
awful.
did it.
Maybe
So sad.
somebody found out that some mean person did it, and
I don't know. I want to get past that part.
yeah, that's bad.
So, want to give yourself prediabetes? Reduce sleep up to 4 hours a night for just 6 days.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, in other words, on the days I work, when I can't get sleep or I don't get sleep and I only get 4 hours of sleep a night, yeah, that can be contributing to my problem. That's awful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, we have another good suggestion from Cynthia. She said you can just use blue blocking glasses also. And candle lights. Oh, nice.
Huh.
So I do have blue blocking glasses. They're really, really ugly, but they fit over my glasses.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I would look like all evening. But it is something that I should probably wear more of, and too much screen time for sure.
Yeah. I think
Okay,
we can
so
all say that. Yeah.
all right, so I do not want to kill a puppy.
No.
So I get the point.
Yeah, she drove the point home.
Yeah.
So-
So I'm curious about her, what she talks about how it affects the microbiome. I always wonder, like we always hear about how like we don't know anything about the microbiome really. So she mentions that it can the lack of sleep can actually help or damage the gut microbiome. So I'm curious about that. Maybe it's because of the free radicals, because she says your cells spew out excess free radicals. So maybe that's it. They send out danger signals and recruit the immune system, struggle to make energy and become insulin resistant. So I don't know, maybe all of that just has an effect on your gut microbiome and the inflammation that occurs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I would think it affects your whole body, really.
So,
So it would be
I would think it
logical.
would happen in these 3 ways that she talks about on page 192. So
Mhm.
she's talking about looking specifically at bad energy processes. We see that sleep affects all of them. Mitochondrial dysfunction, oxidative stress, and chronic inflammation. Now, she
Mhm.
doesn't attribute that just to the gut, but I would think that all 3 of those things could be attributed to the whole body as well as the gut. And with the gut being, 70% of our immune system or whatever it is they say.
Yeah, and I have a terrible track record of having lab work done after going to a concert. And I can tell
You've been
you,
to a
like
lot of concerts.
my fasting blood sugar actually was like, I don't remember what it was. It was like 105 or something the last time. But of course, that was also when he tested my A1C and my fasting insulin, which showed that, the A1C was good, although it was a little bit higher than I thought. And they tested the fructosamine too, which, but anyway, the whole point is my fasting blood sugar was higher. It was like 10 points higher or more than it
Were you out really late? Were you out really
Yes,
late?
I was at a concert the night before, and then I had to be there at 7:30 for my physical. It was my physical, the last physical I had.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
interesting.
my blood work was terrible. It was Alice Cooper and Rob Zombie the night before, and
oh wow.
yeah.
Well, so maybe it wasn't the music. Some people will say, "Oh, the music will, make you sick," but it's not. It's the lack of sleep.
No, because the music makes me feel good. It's good for my health,
Yeah.
but the late hour combined with getting up really early the next morning and then having that blood work done, and I think, I think it. And I actually asked him, because I told him that I had gone to a concert the night before, and I think he actually made a little comment about something about my lab work and Rob Zombie and Alice Cooper, something about it. Well, yeah, I think it would affect it or something like that is what he said. But anyway, it did affect my fasting blood sugar though.
Yeah, interesting. Well, I thought it was interesting where she talked about this study, and of course, it was just on mice, but it was still interesting with the mitochondria.
Mhm.
where the mice would only could rest for only 4 hours in a 24-hour period over 4 months. And the structure of the mitochondria was destroyed by long-term sleep deprivation. And they looked at it under an electron microscope, and the healthy versus the sleep deprived mitochondria. And the sleep deprived mitochondria were like comical misshapen blobs compared to the healthy version. So it literally destroyed the mitochondria.
Well, your body goes through so many repair processes and stuff while you sleep. I mean, it's for the mind as well as the body itself. Like, I think your mind actually kind of purges itself of, just things. And like, I don't know about you, but like that saying about sleeping on something, like, well, I'll just sleep on it. And then you wake up the next day and you just have a solution to the problem. I can't tell you how many times that's happened to me. Like if I've had a problem I'm trying to solve for work or something, or I've had it even where I've woken up in the middle of the night, like to use the restroom. And then it's just, oh, okay, this.
Yeah.
You just, so it's a restoration time. Sleep is a time for your body to just, you clear out the dead mitochondria or the damaged mitochondria. You're, going through all this regeneration. And if you're not sleeping, then your body, all those processes get disrupted. So that makes total sense.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So I guess that would lend to the question of, was it the sleep deprivation? Did it actually destroy the mitochondria, or was this mitochondria that just needed repair and the bodies didn't do it?
That is, yep. That's a good question. It's probably a combination of both. You couldn't get rid of the bad ones. And so that affects how you function. And then plus it probably did damage some of the good ones that you had.
Yeah. Well, and these little mice ended up with heart failure.
Yeah.
Because when you have destroyed mitochondria, I know this is like so sad. The animals in this chapter, like
think of the animals, Carnivore.
Puppies and mice. But the destroyed mitochondria led to heart failure because the heart muscle wasn't getting enough energy.
The irony here, Lynn, the irony.
Yes.
of all of these like carnivores that are like, oh, the animals.
Well, I mean, I don't want the animals to die of heart failure. I want them to die after a beautifully lived life, and now they're having a moment of unpleasantness so that I can eat.
Right. There's a big difference between suffering, long-term suffering, and
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
4 months too. That's a lot of.
We love animals. Time. We want them to have a good, healthy life. So, but that was interesting. So oxidative stress, chronic. So she said even modest sleep restriction from going from 8 hours to 6 hours per night for a week can significantly increase pro-inflammatory chemicals in the blood, including interleukin-6 and tumor necrosing factor A, both of which are the body's danger signals that are known to induce insulin resistance. So insulin resistance. If you want, like, I want to get more insulin sensitive, and I really feel like my sleep is a big hindrance for me. I am way better than I was. I'm actually pretty insulin sensitive, but I could be better.
She mentioned somewhere, and I can't find exactly where it is, but she talked about also, though, like there's a window between 7 and 8 hours. So like if you get like over 8 hours and you can actually get too much sleep. And I do find that that's true. If I happen to sleep longer, I don't feel as good. I don't feel as refreshed.
Have you ever noticed that, like, I don't know if this is just me, but if I get way more than 8 hours of sleep, my whole body will just ache in bed. Like I'll just lay there and I'm just.
You don't even want to get up then. Yeah, you don't even want to get up. You just feel crappy. And I can't take naps. Like years ago when I was a lot younger, I could take a nap. Now if I do, I just feel worse after I did it. So I just force myself to just push through that and then just go to bed at a good time.
Yeah.
I just can't do naps anymore. I feel terrible.
generally don't, but then yesterday I actually did take a nap. I took a long nap. It was probably at least 4 hours, and I did feel worse. And like I
Yeah.
usually never take naps. This
Because you
was a
feel like
complete
it's the middle of the night, like you feel like
oh my
your body
gosh.
wants to keep sleeping.
And
Mhm.
then I couldn't get to sleep at night. And it's like I ended up so last night I got just under 6 hours of sleep because I couldn't get to sleep.
Mhm.
So yeah, but I did. I felt worse when I got up. I felt like I had been drugged,
Yeah.
and it's
Oh, I
like
And
found that.
groggy, and you for me, it's your limbs feel heavier, like there's just this
yes.
pressure on you.
I found that resident thing that
Did
Oh,
you?
you
tells how
did?
many. Did you find it a while ago?
No, what page?
It's 196.
Oh, okay. All right.
So basically, it says research shows residents.
I did underline it.
It says research shows residents working 36-hour shifts will commit 36% more serious medical errors and make 460% more diagnostic mistakes in the intensive care unit than a well-rested doctor.
Mm.
They will also be significantly less empathetic to patients' pain at the end of a
Oh.
26-hour shift. After 36-hour shift, a resident is 73% more likely to stab themselves with a needle or cut themselves with a scalpel. When a sleep deprived resident finishes a long shift and gets into their car to go home, they are 168% more likely to be involved in a MBC resulting from fatigue. That's
Mm.
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, that's significant.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And to think about all these, residents who have worked so hard to get to that point in their life, risking everything, basically being like a drunk driver out on the streets.
Yeah. Well, and the 460% more diagnostic mistakes, that's huge
Yeah.
because the diagnosis drives the treatment.
Mm-hmm.
So if
And
they're
more
making
likely to stab themselves
diagnosing,
with a needle or cut themselves with a scalpel. That's
well, that
startling.
just hurts them. That just hurts them.
Well, yeah, that's true, but I mean,
I'm
still.
alarmed by the things that are going to hurt the patient.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like the diagnostic errors to me are like, yeah, the medical errors, 36% more medical errors are, well, serious medical errors. So obviously it's not just medical errors, serious. And I'd like to know what that
Yeah.
means. Does that mean that someone died or, I don't know, but
Yeah, like they
yeah, I'll
accidentally
leave it.
clip a vein or something, or clip a.
But if they know this, then why are they still making residents work these long hours?
Yeah, because I just don't see how that's necessary. I just don't.
Mm-mm.
It's
Yeah,
no, it's completely counterproductive.
man, that's
Interesting.
very disturbing.
And then,
So,
what were you going to say?
were we going to kind of go back a little bit to 193 where she's talking about the microbiome?
You can.
Yep.
I was just curious what you guys thought about it because she says sleep deprivation can profoundly alter microbiome composition. She talks about it reducing the butyrate and how our microbiome is sensitive to the lack of sleep and will also affect, well, that's a different topic, is affecting your hunger hormones. But I was kind of confused. Like in the second paragraph, she says, in a lab, you can deprive a mouse of sleep and then transfer that mouse's microbiome to a mouse that isn't just sleep deprived and doesn't have a microbiome. What does that mean?
Yeah, exactly.
So that
I
means
thought
those are the ones that
Sterilized?
the one that are sterile microbiomes, they have to be raised that way. Like they have to be like
Okay.
that is a special like lab rat. You know what I'm saying? Like
okay.
they
Because I
have
just thought
they have
everything had a
made people.
microbiome.
They've made people like that, and I think wasn't that
Okay.
boy in the bubble that was like that didn't have
Okay.
a
So basically they had a sterile microbiome.
yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Mm.
So, okay, so that's basically the sterile microbiome mice ended up developing chronic inflammation throughout the body and in the brain, as well as cognitive impairment when it had the transfer. So that's interesting. No.
That is interesting, and I do agree with her that all of these things with the and like several, like Mark Sisson, for example. I remember, when I first started going on this low carb journey, on the proper human diet spectrum, but I discovered his blog, and he talked about the importance of, getting out and, the sunlight, moving your body consistently throughout the day, stepping in the grass, grounding. All of these things are, our ancestors evolved doing these things, and we don't do them anymore. And our poor bodies just don't know what in the heck is going on. I mean, it's no wonder we're all messed up, really.
Okay, correction. The boy in the bubble was not not like that. I'm so sorry, guys. I'm a little.
He was neutropenic, right?
Well, but he had severe combined immunodeficiency.
Mm-hmm.
So he had multiple parts of his immune system that weren't, right. Like, yeah. Anyway, but that's not the same thing at all. But these the mice that have the only way to get a sterile gut is basically, to my understanding, through creating it in the lab.
And they can live.
Yeah, because I thought you just had to have something in there.
They can't live. Like, they won't live with just that.
So how do you tell whether the problem with that sterile mice was because of the microbiota transplant, or if it was just because they didn't have a sterile gut in the first place, or they had a sterile gut? That's I guess you can check their inflammatory markers.
So like at birth, the entire the entire intestinal tract is sterile. Like even in humans, but then it's the infants is immediately colonized by like the mothers, like as it's passing through, that's how it starts to develop some of its bacteria. Like, I guess in the womb, it's sterile.
Mm-hmm. Okay, interesting.
So I guess maybe they extract the baby mice before they pass through the canal to get any from the mother. Like, they just do a little cesarean on the mama and take the babies out. I mean, I'm like Lynn, though. I wonder how they don't have a biome, because you couldn't live outside without one.
Unless they were in a very sterile environment.
You're going to get one just by living, like just by eating or drinking anything.
Yeah.
That's how your gut gets colonized, basically.
So I wonder if they just do it like when they're babies.
I don't know.
And just immediately put that in the, you know what I'm saying?
Sad.
I don't know.
Makes me sad. Oh, yeah. It's like if they're doing all these studies and it's really helping change our behavior, and we're learning from it, it's one thing, but I feel like we're not learning from it.
Yeah, I feel like the study results aren't getting out to most of us.
Right.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah, it makes me kind of sad. So, all right. So, this was interesting. She said, at 19 hours of no sleep, a person is as cognitively impaired as someone with a blood alcohol level at the legal limit of 0.08.
But how we always, that is something I've said constantly, a lot of times is, oh, I'm just punch drunk, or, you know what I'm saying? Like when you're tired like that and you say something that maybe doesn't come out quite right or something like that. And you're just like, oh, you just make a comment like that.
Right.
So people, we know it.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize it was to that extent, like that you were actually that impaired to that level.
Yeah, and then she talked about
Mhm.
having these micro sleeps that are experienced during the day when you get
That was
diminished sleep.
that was crazy.
That's trippy.
Yeah, like a no conscious response or motor response, but the people just generally aren't even aware of it.
They don't know that they did it. That's wild.
Right. Right.
That's nuts.
Yeah. Yeah, that is nuts. So, okay. So she talked about quantity of sleep, in which we already determined was like 7 to 8 hours, right? The magic
Mhm.
number is 7 to 8 hours, not more and not less.
Mhm.
Because, yeah, it says interestingly, the risk of metabolic dysfunction increases if you average more than 8 hours by disrupting your sleep-wake cycle. So, yeah, that was interesting. So the goal is somewhere between 7 and 8 hours.
So I don't think she talked about it right there, but I was thinking about where she was talking about the social, what was it? She called it like the social variant of sleep or something, where she said that the midpoint of your sleep, like on the weekdays versus the weekends. I
Yes.
don't think we're to that part yet, so we can wait.
Yeah, but that was interesting. Yes, where she was talking about jet lag and your
Social
midpoint in
jet
your
lag or something like that.
Social jet lag. That's
social
it.
jet lag. That was like a boing, light bulb for me,
Yeah.
because like we are probably getting jet lag. We'll get to that, but that was,
Yeah, we'll
very
get
interesting.
to that. We're not quite there yet.
Yeah.
But basically, she said that research consistently points to the magic number of getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep. Warning signs blare if you average below 7 hours a night. Interestingly, the risk for metabolic function increases if you average more than 8 hours by disrupting your sleep-wake cycle.
Right.
So
Mhm.
I'm just messing myself up all the way around. Like on my days I work, I'm getting, probably 6 hours on average, if that, sometimes not even that. And then on my days I don't work, sometimes I'll sleep, 10 hours. So I'm just messing myself up.
Oh, yeah. So you'd probably be better off making sure, like setting an alarm and making sure you don't go beyond 8 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, when I get too much sleep, I usually say I feel sleep logged. Like you just feel like you're dragging all
Oh,
day. And
yeah.
sometimes I'll have a headache and just don't feel good if I get too much sleep. I almost feel better getting not enough sleep than too much sleep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Not that I feel great.
That initial wake up period is harder when you don't get enough sleep, but you don't feel as bad throughout the day,
Mhm.
you just don't
Yeah.
get too much. So then she goes on to talk about quality of sleep, and basically minimally interrupted sleep is also a critical component of metabolic health. Reduced sleep quality is linked to bad energy conditions such as type 2 diabetes, obesity, heart disease, Alzheimer's, and stroke. And she talks about the amount of time spent in deep and REM sleep.
Mhm.
And it just helps all around, reduces cancer mortality, cardiovascular mortality, yada, yada, yada.
Well, it was interesting. She said that the better sleep quality you have, the more likely you are to have a lower blood glucose response to breakfast the next morning compared to
Yeah.
those who have poor quality sleep.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
yeah, so less of a spike in blood sugar when you do finally eat. So I thought that was interesting.
And then, so the next section is the section we were talking about that has the social jet lag in it. It's consistency.
Mhm.
And she said she's been surprised to learn how keeping a consistent bedtime matters profoundly to our metabolic health. Research has found that social jet lag of greater than 2 hours in people 60 years or younger yields an approximately twofold increased risk of metabolic syndrome and diabetes or prediabetes. Social jet lag is a measure of sleep consistency looking at the difference in bedtime and wake time between work days and days off as measured by the midpoint of sleep. For example, if a person sleeps from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. on weekdays, the midpoint of their sleep is 2 a.m. If they sleep from midnight to 10 a.m. on weekends, the midpoint is 5 a.m. This represents 3 hours of social jet lag, doubling the risk of metabolic disease. Almost half of U.S. Adults report at least 1 hour of social jet lag. Similar associations are seen in night shift workers who experience significantly higher rates of type 2 diabetes. Wow.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's eye-opening.
I knew for years being on night shift, it just made me physically ill, but I couldn't put my finger on it. I knew
I
that
will tell you that probably the another reason why they have higher rates of type 2 diabetes is that they just eat, like they grab stuff out of vending machines or
and she does talk about that too,
mm-hmm.
a little bit. And then how, like, once you stay up past that certain point, your body just wants to eat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So I think that I've got social jet lag a lot.
Yeah, I do too.
Didn't even realize it. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it was interesting that what she said about daylight savings time.
Yep, I agree.
There was a reason why I knew there was a reason why I hated that.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. So she said research has shown that these bi-yearly shifts are associated with increased heart attack, stroke, hospital admission due to arrhythmia, missed medical appointments, emergency room visits, inflammatory markers, high blood pressure, car crashes, and mood disorders, as well as changes in gene expression, including in clock genes. So, like, they're trying to get the American Academy of Sleep Medicine is trying to get rid of daylight savings time.
I wish
because
they
I guess
would.
right. Yeah, they must have tracked these things like right after daylight, so that the time change, they must see all this increase in all these things.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's nuts. So, one thing I do have a question though, when I don't know what you guys think of this, is because she's talking about the consistency of your sleep. And she did talk somewhere in here about how artificial light was not always in our lives, and that people, they went with the daylight, and they didn't have a lot of options. They used fire, right, to keep to be light. And so they tended to sleep more, like they just sleep when it was dark and they would be awake when it was light. But then that seems to kind of conflict with the whole thing about consistency. And so, like, because, as we go into winter, it's getting darker earlier and earlier. So, like, if I was to just go like, well, when it's dark, I'm going to go to bed, that's not going to give me consistency throughout the year, because where I live, I mean, in the middle of the peak of the summer, it'll be light after 10 p.m. here. And, but then with a very short day of winter, it'll get dark sometime like after 4 p.m. just for a few days, but it fluctuates between those two, because I'm farther north than you guys are. Like if you go to Alaska, right? You have these 12-hour. Yeah, you've got like all day, sunlight all day for part of the year, and then the other part of the year it's dark. So it's like, so I don't know. I guess you can still be consistent with your sleep, but maybe honor the daylight versus the night with maybe not doing all the artificial lights. Is that kind of what you were kind of getting out of what she's saying?
Yeah. And I also think our ancestors probably had a lot more sex in the winter.
Yeah.
Probably.
They found something to do.
It wasn't watching TV.
There's a reason a lot of babies are born in September.
Mm-hmm. Yes, this is true.
That's just
funny.
making that up.
My
So,
brother's birthday-
but they also did other things indoors, like by the fire. They would repair weapons and they would kind of do these things. And then I think they probably went to their sleeping mats and procreated, and then they went on to sleep. And they just kind of incorporated. They did what they could, with when it got dark earlier. They just had different things that they did, and there wasn't any fake light. They probably just by firelight they were repairing their weapons and stuff.
Susan said, okay, she just fell off her vibration plate, Carrie.
So, Carrie, so
Right.
per Carrie, we should be having a lot of sex all winter.
Yes, we should.
Well, I just have to say that my children were born in September, October, and November.
There
and
you
then I have one
go.
born in April, but
Oh my goodness. I was born in April, but I think I was my mom's 40th birthday present.
There you
I
go.
think,
What
'cause
better
it, like,
present?
tracks right back.
oh, that's great.
Like literally, she turned 40 July 5th of the year before I was born. I was born April the following year.
Oh, that's so funny.
I was a big surprise.
Yeah,
Not
Susan, I
expecting
hope you're
pregnancy.
okay.
Yeah, I hope you didn't hurt yourself.
That's funny.
Oh my goodness. I know my husband's going to be going, hey, I suddenly like your book club.
Well, he's going to say what?
He's going to say, hey, I think I like your book club.
Oh, that's so funny. All right.
Oh my goodness. All right.
Okay, so where are we at, guys?
Artificial light, and which was we were just talking about, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. Sometimes we'll start talking about it before we get to that section. So I'm like,
I know. Well, I had a big question mark though next to this comment that she made here. That she says artificial light at night helps to explain about 70% of the excess body mass prevalence among people worldwide. How do you know that? That I was just thrown off by that statistic because like we
I just
talked
kind of
about
wonder where it came. I mean, it says a study, but it doesn't really. It just says showing even when controlling for food intake. But I don't know how that. I would have to just see the study, I guess, and I didn't look it up.
Yeah, we know how difficult it is to control for
Mhm.
food intake.
and this is one study, it looks like. I don't know. I don't put a lot of faith in.
I'm
I guess we
super
could look at it,
cynical.
but yeah.
But I do believe that the artificial light has a lot to do with it. And I think even during the day, the artificial light, like when she was talking about the need for actual sunlight. I mean, there were days, when I was working downtown, I wouldn't see the sun all day long,
Yeah.
and I was in the middle of a cube maze with that fluorescent light. And it was,
Well, as a nurse in the winter, I go in, it's dark outside. I leave, it's dark outside.
Right.
yep.
Yeah, that's depressing. But she did say that light at night is so strongly detrimental to our health that it is now considered an environmental endocrine disruptor, meaning that it can directly alter hormone signaling just as a medication or toxin could do.
I want to get
sort
some
of-
candles for my house and just have everybody walk around with lanterns, and we're
Go
just
back to
gonna
Little
turn
House
all
on
the
the
lights off.
Prairie.
Yeah, we're
Little
gonna,
House on the Prairie days.
yeah, we're gonna go back to Little House days, and at night after we turn out the candles, after we blow out the candles, we're gonna say, "Good night, John Boy."
That was the Waltons. Yes. Yes. And I'm sure most of the people that listen to us will totally get that because they're at least our age and older.
Yeah. Night, Mary Ellen. Night, John
That's
Boy.
right. Good night, Elizabeth. Oh my goodness. Okay, so so that's interesting. This is where getting the blue light blockers or changing to getting some red light plugins. I like the idea of plugins as long as they don't have fragrance. That might be a good idea. Or just have some specific lamps that just have the red light, and that's what you turn on in the evening. You turn off the other ones.
I mean, even a red light, like night light in your bathroom so that you can not stub your toe on the way to the bathroom.
Right.
Yeah, maybe that'll work.
That's a good idea. Yeah, that's a good idea. So interesting. Okay. And of course, melatonin is the key, one of the key things that she talks about here. So, okay. Oh, this is where she talks about the ambient light in the bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this was interesting because she mentions a study of more than 100,000 women. So I'd be curious. She didn't say what the study was, but she said exposure to light while sleeping was strongly associated with higher BMI, higher waist circumference, and higher waist to hip ratio. So, which reminds me, like my daughter would, and I don't know if she still does this or not now that she's married, but she never did because, she went through a lot of abuse in foster care and in her birth home as a little child. And so ever since she came with us, she's always needed to have light in her room. And then as she got older and she had a TV, she would go to sleep with the TV on.
Mm-hmm.
And very often it would be like the TV would be on all night.
Yeah, my
And
kids do that too.
I cannot sleep with the TV on. I just
Well,
can't.
I can, but then I'll have dreams about whatever they're talking about. And that led to one of my worst nightmares I've ever had. Oh.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I'd listen to people talking about stuff like it was a news channel, I guess.
Uh-huh.
And just listen to the stuff they were talking about. And I had this horrible dream, but
Mm.
anyway.
Well, that's your body
Yeah.
saying, don't do that.
Yes, don't
Yeah.
do that. So, all right. So, you think we can finish this chapter? The meal,
Yeah,
there's the meal time.
I think we can.
I think we
Yeah, I
can.
think
Yeah.
we can.
Yeah, I think we can. We're not too far because for once, get a chapter done in one session.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So on to meal timing.
Mhm.
So basically, what does she say about this here? Let's see here.
Well, she talks about that we because of the circadian rhythm, it primes us to be more insulin sensitive and to generate more heat from metabolizing food in the morning instead of the evening. So she talks about front loading your food more.
And not eating carbs or not, if you're eating carbs, not to eat carb heavy meals in the morning.
Well, she says that we do better with higher carb foods in the morning.
Oh, she did?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't eat. And then
Yeah,
don't
she
eat.
said research. Yeah, she said research suggests that we do better by front loading the day with food, especially higher carbohydrate foods.
Wait a minute.
Because we're more insulin sensitive.
Okay, I read that wrong then, or I listened to it wrong. In my mind, I flipped it because that's totally opposite of what I've heard other people say. They always say, even people who say, yeah, I eat carbs, they usually always say, eat a high protein breakfast.
Well, and then I don't know. I mean, yeah, interesting. And maybe it has to do too with if you're getting the right sleep. Because if you're getting the right sleep, if you're getting the right sleep and you're more insulin sensitive, then I guess you could handle it better in the morning. Whereas if you're not getting good sleep, you may struggle. Well, I would think you'd struggle all day.
Well, she does say something that and I guess this is why my mind flipped it, is because this is also what other people say, stopping eating as early as possible in the evening. So in other words, you're better off, like my natural inclination is to fast through breakfast. And so this source, as well as other like many books that I've read, say you're better off to do the opposite, and that's fast through supper. But I think that's a lot better.
I've heard both. So yeah, I'd be curious to know. And it may be that this is a situation where there's research studies and some of the studies show one thing and the others show the exact opposite. Mm-hmm. Because again, how do you control all the variables? And maybe it's just like this particular study is showing that we're more insulin sensitive in the morning if we're getting good sleep. And so therefore the conclusion is we can handle carbs better in the morning if we're getting good sleep. So maybe it was maybe it was more of a sleep study looking at insulin resistance compared to sleep, and there was an inference that then you can handle more carbs in the morning as opposed
That's a
to
good point.
a food study.
Yeah.
Although she did say that there was a study that they had, let's see, she said one study showed that eating food later in the evening, so at 8:30 p.m., caused a significant increase in both insulin and glucose levels compared with eating the exact same meal consumed in the morning at 9:30 a.m. So, yeah, so I guess there were
And
food
in a way,
studies.
it makes sense because your body, when you go, especially if you eat that late at night and then you go to bed, and your body's kind of getting mixed signals on what it's supposed to be doing. Am I supposed to be rebuilding? Am I supposed but wait, I've got to digest this food. I've got to do something with this. And so I can see where that would be true, that it might not be as efficient at the digestion,
Yeah. But she does say that we as in the US display erratic eating patterns that are completely out of line with our natural circadian biology. And that was this list she gave was interesting. She said, as modern Americans, and she gives a bulleted list. I was really surprised by the first one. She says we have up to 11 eating events per day. And I shouldn't be surprised by that because that probably was me before. Like I was grazing all day long, eating on stuff.
Yeah.
So
I don't
probably
know
had
how they
more.
separated into 11 because I know of people who used to just have stuff at their desk all the time and they would just be eating all day. And then they would still break for lunch though. But you know what I'm saying? Like they would just have crackers and well, heck, I mean, before I started this way of eating, I would do that. I'd have crackers in my drawer. I had little, packs of peanuts or just whatever. And I would just like nibble on stuff too.
Yeah. And so she says only 25% of food intake occurs before noon. This is for standard Americans. 35% of intake occurs after 6 p.m. And more than half of us eat over a period of 15 hours or more a day. And on weekends, eating windows are shifted to later. So we have basically very erratic food patterns. So she's really pushing for having consistent. Now, this is very different too than a lot of what we hear, because we hear, well, we should just eat when you are hungry. And she's saying you should eat basically on a schedule.
Well, yeah, but she talks about the time restricted feeding, and which is another way of saying intermittent fasting.
Yeah.
So I've heard Dr. Berry say, like, there's been some people who say, well, I eat breakfast instead, and then I skip dinner. And I think the basic premise is whichever way works best for you, and then just make sure you eat plenty when you do eat. And that would still make you have a consistent schedule. You know what I mean? Like if you just consistently, because I do generally skip breakfast. Now I will have to say the last few days I've actually been eating breakfast again. And like not eating anything in the evenings, which used to be the opposite for me. I would eat somewhere between like 10 and 12 and then eat again, somewhere around 4 or 5, and then not eat again until the next day, So, but I think just being consistent in, and just doing that time restricted feeding would be the same. But, the intermittent fasting kind of that I've heard others talk about would give you the same thing. And it's funny that she's using that term, time restricted feeding instead of intermittent fasting. I guess people are more leery of using the term fasting because maybe it gives like people a knee-jerk reaction or something. But this is the second time recently that I've heard it referred to as that. Didn't in the ketogenic book, didn't they refer to it as time restricted? The time restricted feeding. I think they did.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, Susan said, yet people in Europe tend to be thinner, and yet they eat dinner separate at 8 p.m.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many factors to all this.
So too.
I don't know.
The quality of the food
Oh,
matters.
definitely the quality, because you could be
That is
eating.
the number one, like the quality of the food that you're eating and like specifically what you're eating. I think that's the most important thing.
And I love the fact
That's
that
my
we just
opinion,
had
so.
that Senate hearing on nutrition and health. And I think I sent you guys the clip for Dr. Chris Palmer, who's testified before
Yes,
Senate.
Yeah,
I
need to
actually
watch
watched that whole thing.
Oh yeah, Michaela Peterson, Jordan Peterson. There were a whole bunch, but they had carnivores on there, and they had a whole bunch of people. And I love the fact Casey Means and Callie Means, and I love the fact that someone in our government is listening, because one of the big things they did talk about was all of these additives and these things are allowed in our food in the US that aren't allowed. And that's, to me, it's like, if we need to take baby steps towards making reform, that's a good place to start.
Yeah.
Because I mean, when it comes to making changes like this, when it comes to our government and policies and what they write, guidelines and stuff, you got to take baby steps. And so I love the fact that there's at least someone listening and open to having this in a public forum.
And there are people who, most of the American public, quite honestly, doesn't really think about it. And they're told that what they eat.
We don't have time to think about it.
True. Yeah, because we are busy. We have families and, jobs, and some of us have 2 jobs, or they're in school while they're working, while they've got families. I mean, they've just got lives. And so people in general don't know about this, but because it's being mentioned that way, and it's actually being reported on, which is amazing.
Yeah.
So it can at least make people aware.
I've noticed an increase of people on the internet saying they're poisoning our food. Like, why are we tolerating this? Like that kind of line of thinking, not necessarily carnivore, keto, whatever, but just like, why are we as Americans tolerating our food supply literally being poison? We should be able to walk into a grocery store, and anything there in that store should be safe and should not be damaging to our, neuro system, or to our, metabolic health, or, I mean, like there's a difference between just sitting and gorging out on one type of food. If you just sit and ate French fries 24 hours a day, but those French fries should be made of natural ingredients that should not contain all these extra chemicals and additives and preservatives and things that are damaging. And we know they're damaging. We have evidence of that. Like, why?
Now,
like if McDonald's were allowed to cook their fries in tallow like they used to, the fries wouldn't be nearly as harmful, to people. But those seed oils are awful.
Was it Chris Palmer? I watched more than one of the interview or the segments from that Senate hearing, so it might have been Chris Palmer. Was he the one that mentioned that if the guidelines change, that people would follow them, and that's what happened.
More than one person mentioned that.
Yes, that the people follow the guidelines. That there's like people are trying to do the right. Yes, people are trying to do the right thing, but they're following by following the guidelines. So you got to change the guidelines, and people will follow them.
Yeah, and I wish that we could at least get like organic, like make that the standard, organic. That way you're not dealing with, GMO food can't be organic, right? I'm pretty sure that's the case. So you're not dealing with like GMOs, you're not dealing with all these extra just crap that's added to stuff. Like you can make junk food. If people want to eat junk food and processed food, you can still get that. That's organic, but
even the organic,
all these chemicals, all that, they need to get rid of the glyphosate and things like that.
But here's the unfortunate thing about wheat, though, that it's so prevalent now to have that dwarf wheat. They need to have some
GMO.
Yes, exactly.
Everything has to be organic, wouldn't it get rid of that?
I don't think so, because organic just means that you don't put stuff on it. So technically,
wait. So
Yeah.
to meet the USDA organic regulations, farmers and processors must show they aren't using GMOs and that they are protecting their products from contact with prohibited substances such as GMOs from farm to table.
Well,
That's
I'm curious as to how they
USDA.gov.
label some of that wheat as being organic then, because it's been modified. It's been genetically modified. Now, it hasn't
And
been, I mean, it's been tinkered with. So that dwarf wheat, which is basically all the wheat we have in this country anymore. I mean, I don't think farmers are even allowed to grow any other types of wheat. I'm pretty sure they're not. I know William Davis talks about that, and it's been a while since I read Wheat Belly, but
yeah.
So I don't know how they could say that wheat currently would be organic, like this would be an organic bread if it comes from that dwarf wheat. So
Yeah,
I think their definitions are a little like GMO, because technically you can say they didn't exactly. There's certain processes, certain ways that they can modify things genetically, and I think that the process that was used for that dwarf wheat doesn't count as genetically modified.
Is it because it's a
I
hybrid?
just think if we get rid of the glyphosate, we'll be so much better. Like even with modified, like even with GMO food, like if we could just get rid of the toxins that, I mean, I just think that there's like a hierarchy of like how bad it is. And I think that spraying Roundup, which literally, is toxic to the nervous system of live animals and insects and stuff. And think of what it's doing to our nervous system.
Yep.
I just don't understand how
even
we allow that.
Even organic food, there's still no guarantee that the soil is good. I mean, hopefully organic farmers are a lot more sensitive to making sure they have really good high nutrient soil, but we still have to make sure that the soil is full of the nutrients, the microbiome to produce healthy food. Because even a lot of the food, I mean, it could be organic, but if it's a nutrient depleted soil, we're going to have nutrient depleted food.
I mean, I think we already have that across the board anyway.
Absolutely.
But
absolutely.
I mean, we have to start somewhere, Yeah.
Yes.
I totally agree.
We're not gonna convince a whole nation to, go carnivore or keto. But if we can just like start with small changes that are actually huge, just getting toxins out of our food, like literal neurotoxins.
Baby steps.
Yeah.
It's baby steps. So excellent. So okay, Susan has some good comments here about the wheat.
Which one do you want me to put up?
So even organic grains have glyphosate because it's carried in the wind.
I mean, but they're not allowed to, like, if it's organic, they get inspected and they can't even plant this next to a field that's not organic. Like if their neighbor's field is not organic, they can't get that certified. That USDA certified stamp they protect it pretty well. So I mean,
here's a question.
It may not be perfect, but it's better than eating food that's had Roundup.
Are they saying with the stamp? Are they saying there's no glyphosate, or are they saying that there's an acceptable level of glyphosate?
Yeah, there are not using glyphosate on organic food.
Right. But do they test to see if there's like when they test
sure
to see?
They do because they get
often they'll say, well, there's an acceptable level, and as long as it's under the acceptable level, I'd be curious.
I don't know, but any amount that's like a tiny fraction of amount versus like what I've been eating my entire life, which is like just full on glyphosate, multiple times sprayed. It's literally in the salts of it. I mean, I don't know.
Interesting. She said King Arthur organic flour was tested and it had glyphosate.
I'm sure it does, but I mean, it's everywhere. It's literally everywhere.
Right.
If they would get rid of the glyphosate, maybe we would stand a fighting chance,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with that. You guys want to quickly go through the tips that she left here? Because these are good.
Which one? What page are you on?
2:05.
Protecting your circadian rhythm.
Okay.
Yeah, we can quickly go through those, and that'll wrap
Yeah.
up the chapter.
Do you all want to like take turns reading the tips?
Sure.
I'll
We can
start.
summarize them. Okay.
All right. Understand your sleep patterns. 1, get a baseline assessment of your sleep quantity, quality, and consistency by wearing a sleep tracker. My preferred sleep tracker is Fitbit. More examples in part 3. And so, yes, I have a Fitbit. I'm aware of
I'll find
how poor
mine.
my sleep is, but actually it's getting better. It's getting better incrementally. Okay. 2 is quantity. Assess your average sleep duration per week and whether it is less than 7 hours per night. Do you have days that tend to be outliers for getting more or less sleep? And then 3 is quality. Most sleep trackers will tell you how long you take to fall asleep and how much time you spend awake each night. Additionally, trackers will help you understand whether you are getting adequate REM and deep sleep and what factors like alcohol, eating late, nighttime light exposure, etc., may be negatively impacting your sleep. So, yeah, I'm well aware of. So is anybody? The next one is consistency.
Yeah, consistency. That's the big thing. The social jet lag. That was a big, huge eye opener for me.
Go ahead and
Okay,
read
so
the rest of
I'll
that,
do number
Carrie.
2.
Because if she'll finish reading that, that'll be the end of number 1. And then
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
All right, consistency. Assess whether you are experiencing social jet lag of more than 1 hour by figuring out the midpoint of your sleep window and comparing it day to day throughout the week. Once you understand your baseline, create a strategy to work toward a more consistent bedtime and wake time, as well as a goal for increasing the quantity of sleep to at least 7 hours per night without any outliers. So,
Yes. Without outliers. That's the key.
yeah, that's the key.
All right. So I'll do number 2.
okay.
So find accountability for your sleep goals. So once you set goals for bedtime, wake time, and quantity of sleep per night, share them with a friend, partner, or coach, and commit to sending them your sleep data daily to ensure you stay accountable. Maybe we need to do this.
Maybe we do.
I bet
She
that
said,
friend's gonna be like, not again. I don't have time for this.
so she says, I like to put my money where my mouth is with my accountability partner. If I don't, and now we can do this. She says, if I don't adhere to my sleep goals, I must go clean my best friend's house. I'm not going to fly all the way out there and clean your house. Sorry.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So she says, there's new digital services such as Crescent Health pair you with a sleep coach to stay accountable. That's interesting. You can actually have a sleep coach. All right.
So we number 3 now.
Yep.
All right. So number 3, log your food temporarily to understand when and what you're eating. Food logging is an excellent way to understand exactly what and when you're eating. When I reviewed my own food logs with a nutritionist, I realized for the first time that I had a small snack almost every night at 11 p.m. Logging my food helped me set realistic goals for my eating cutoff time. I track my food on the Levels app while wearing a continuous glucose monitor and in macro factor when I'm not. Both are seamless ways to know exactly what and when I'm eating.
Now that I'm going to ask, and I don't know if I'll get one, but I'm going to ask since I have a technical diagnosis of abnormal glucose, because like all of my, so anyway, I'm going to ask for a CGM. So we'll see. I've got an appointment on October 3rd for my physical because I have a physical once a year, of course, but then every 6 months there's a follow-up. And I think it was set up that way because of my elevated cholesterol.
So you still have an abnormal glucose?
Yeah. It's a diagnosis of that. And they did, I guess once they put something in, I mean, I guess they don't take it out. I mean, I don't know. But the last one that I had was after I went to that concert. And so it was like 100, I don't remember, it's like 105 or 106, something like that. even though my A1C was good, and even though my fasting insulin was, all of that, the fructosamine, all of that was good, but it was just, so it says abnormal glucose. So I figure if I've got that, that might be grounds. That could be something they could code, to get me a CGM. I'm going to ask. I don't know if they'll do it, but it'll be worth a try. So we'll see. Number 4, pick a cutoff time for last call on daily eating. Set a reasonable goal for when your last bite of food will be. Start with something achievable. For instance, if you eat something at 9:30 p.m. most nights, set your first goal for 9. Okay. As you reach the goal for 2 weeks straight, bump it up a half hour or so every 2 weeks until you reach your final goal. Okay.
Easy enough. So 5 is work to minimize bright artificial light after dark. And I know we already talked about many of these. So she said to purchase red light bulbs for the main rooms you spend time in after dark, like your bedroom, bathroom, kitchen, and family room. Using red lights instead of standard bulbs will minimize the blue light your brain receives. If these bulbs are impossible to obtain, install dimmers on your lights and dim them to minimal brightness after dark. And then use the blue light blocking glasses after dark. She uses one called RA Optics. Turn your screens to night mode after dark. This mode reduces the intensity of blue light your screen emits. And aim to stop looking at screens, even backlit e-readers, during the hour before bed. If you want to read for work or fun, print out the material, use a non-lit screen like a Remarkable tablet, or read a paper book. So I've never heard of a Remarkable tablet before. I'm going to have to look into that. So,
yeah, I've never heard of that either. Number 6, create a light-free and sound-free bedroom. Remove all light and sources of noise from the bedroom. Even small amounts of light from windows, alarm clocks, or TVs can significantly disturb sleep. Invest in blackout curtains. Invest in well-fitting earplugs and a comfortable eye mask. This seems very fussy, just very, very fussy.
I tried an eye mask before, and my eyes got so dry I couldn't open them the next morning.
Really?
Whoa.
Wow.
Now, I use a mask sometimes, like when, in the spring or late spring and summer when I meditate, because too much light comes in. But of course, I'm only using it for like 45 minutes. So I don't know if I could sleep in one, though. I think I would find it annoying.
It was just too snug on my face, and I couldn't blink. I think my eyes dried out because I wasn't blinking. So wow. I think, I would need
eyes open?
No.
How would you blink with your eyes closed?
I mean, I must be doing some blinking and stuff at night. I don't know, but somehow it did something to where my eyes were so dry.
Maybe it I'm thinking did it wick the the moisture from your eyes?
Maybe. I don't know.
Lift it out.
It sounds
that was crazy. Not a pleasant experience at all. So I never did it again.
My eyes are dry enough as it is.
Yeah.
Yes.
So number 7, get outside in the first hour of the day. Yes, this is my favorite one.
Yeah.
Your body needs to know when it is day and night to function properly. Your brain will set you up for a good energy day. Yes, it will, if it knows when it is daytime. But you have to show your brain sunlight. Within 1 hour of waking, get outside no matter what. Don't stare directly at the sun, but make sure the photons have a direct path from the sky to your eyeballs with no windows or sunglasses in the way. It doesn't matter if it's raining or snowing or if it's cloudy or sunny. Being outdoors gives you vastly more solar energy than if a window is blocking the sunlight. You may need to invest in the right outdoor gear so that you have no excuse to avoid this. For instance, when I moved to a snowy town, getting comfortable in snow pants, tall waterproof boots, and a long parka allowed me to quickly suit up for a comfortable walk despite months of freezing and sometimes blizzarding conditions. Ideas for implementation. I like to use 2 to 3 minutes while I'm brushing my teeth to walk around my front yard. Oh, okay. Doing so ensures I get sunlight in the first 10 minutes of the waking day. Make it a habit of walking around the block while you drink your coffee or take your first morning call. Even spending 10 minutes outside in the first hour of the day can have a significant positive impact on synchronizing your body's internal clock with the sunlight.
All good. I like
Yep.
that. Except walking outside in a blizzard.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd do that.
Yeah. I might step outside onto my back patio and like that's probably as far as it'll go and stand there and just let the sun hit my face. But okay, so 8 is the last one. So spend significantly more time outdoors during daylight hours. So aim to get outdoors more frequently throughout the day by scheduling moments to pop outside. Learn to take pride in how many cumulative hours you can spend outside in 24 hours. Bonus points if you're exposed to natural areas like parks or forests, which independently boost health. And lastly, try to move activities you regularly do indoors to the outdoors, like eating meals, reading, taking phone calls, catching up with your partner at the end of the day, or playing with your kids. Get creative.
Oh, and
All
she
right.
does. There's a little note here. It says to view the scientific references cited in this chapter, please visit us online at caseymeans.com/good energy. So I may look
In
at
your
some of that.
spare time.
Yeah, like I'll really do it. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's something
Yeah,
that I
she has-
intend to do, but I don't know if I will.
Yeah.
Yeah, she has that at the end of each chapter.
Yeah.
So,
So
all right.
I was just Googling while you guys were reading about why sleep mask would cause dry eyes. And I came
Okay.
up with several things. And one of them has to do with, it says, the first is that mask-related dry eye is caused by issues with the way that carbon dioxide. So basically, if you're like exhaling and it's going up in your mask, then it can.
Okay.
Oh no, that's a different type of mask. Never mind. Okay, so sleep masks. Um, hold on. There were several reasons. One is that it can sleep masks made of synthetic materials can irritate the skin and eyes, causing dry eyes. Sleep masks that are too loose or too tight can cause dry eyes. An improper fit can also prevent the eyelids from blinking properly, which can dry out the eyes. But why would
There
you
we
be
go.
blinking while you were sleeping? I'm confused.
I think we do. We just probably don't blink like as openly, maybe. Maybe it's
Your
just little
eyes
tiny
are
little.
closed. It didn't make sense to me, but
But during REM sleep, your eyes are moving all over the place.
That's
and,
true.
yeah, but you're not opening them.
Not open all the way, but there may be a little slits that maybe just enough to
Maybe
keep them
maybe you're one of those sleepers that, as a nurse, you'll watch people sleeping and you're like, are they asleep or awake?
My daughter would do that for. Yep, her
I
eyes
think it was
sometimes were partially open.
Yeah, I think it was too tight and it was just preventing me from getting that sufficient eye movement to keep my eyes lubricated.
Yeah.
It was not a happy time.
So blackout curtains for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we don't even put our blinds down at night. Like we literally, we have a very private yard. And so we never close any of our blinds or curtains or anything. We keep everything all over the house.
Oh.
Yeah, open. And so we have the sun comes up and it comes right into our room. So
Yeah, which that's a good thing because then you're aware of, hey, it's daylight. I need to get up.
mm-hmm. Yeah. So my big thing is I need to get to bed earlier.
Yeah,
and
me too.
I do like getting up early. I'm like you, Kim. I enjoy getting up early, but it's hard to do when you're staying up until 2-3 in the morning.
Well, and it's also hard to do when you don't have a reason to get up and get out. Because when you wake up in the morning, your body, it just feels so tired. If I didn't have that motivating factor that like you're going to lose your job if you don't get in there,
That'll do it.
I probably wouldn't do it either. So it's making me think more about like, should I change my schedule at work? Should I do 11 to 11, or should I don't know. I've thought more about like changing things up a little bit. I don't know if I'm really
Well, you
serious
could
about it or not.
start with just trying to go to bed earlier.
Yeah, that would be more realistic.
That'd be a little more realistic.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Of course, I'm just like I'm restructuring my entire life in my brain right now, but
Yeah, you don't necessarily need to go to that extreme.
yeah,
maybe just
all
go
based
to
on
bed
a book that I read.
right.
Yeah.
We're gonna turn our whole lives upside down because
That's
Casey Moon
right.
said so.
That's right. All right, guys.
All right.
I have got to get off here. Speaking of getting things done so I can go to bed earlier.
Yeah. So chapter 8 next week.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. All right. Thanks for
Awesome.
joining us, guys.
Yeah, great
Thanks,
conversation.
everybody.
We'll see y'all next week.
Have
Bye.
a good week.